What's up, Taiwan? I'm Andrew Ryan with 10 minutes of news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Taiwan's tourism sector is looking to put the pandemic behind it as the country prepares to scrap COVID quarantine and reopen to international tourists. But as John Van Trieste reports, a lack of visitors from China and inflation could make the road to recovery a long one.
Taiwan's tourism sector is planning its comeback. It's been holding promotions abroad, hoping to bring back visitors as Taiwan reopens. But recovery may not be easy, even with the country scrapping its COVID quarantine requirement. One problem is China, Taiwan's biggest source of tourists, where a zero-COVID policy continues to disrupt travel. This and a cap on weekly arrivals means the industry is only likely to see around 20% of the 11.8 million arrivals it welcomed in 2019. It could be 2024 before a full recovery. And even then, rising prices could hamper growth.
影响最重的应该会在2024，也就是说，当你全面恢复的时候，它就会回到消费者阻碍很重要一个叫成本因素，也就是它的感受体验价值是够的时候，他才会愿意来。
Still, industry insiders are eager to leave the pandemic in the past. They believe more marketing from the government can counteract inflation and convince overseas tourists to begin making their way back to Taiwan. Patrick Chen and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's tourism industry is starting to pick up again as the country's borders reopen to foreign visitors. The Labor Ministry says the number of travel agency staff on unpaid leave went down by over 3,000 people since last week. That's a drop of 35%. The COVID-19 pandemic has hit Taiwan's tourism sector hard. Many companies had to lay off staff as the country's borders were closed since early 2020. Shares in Taiwan have plunged to their lowest level in 2 years after the U.S. announced sweeping export controls targeting Chinese semiconductor companies. Stocks of the world's most advanced chip maker, Taiwan's TSMC, fell more than 8% when trading resumed on Tuesday. The burst was closed on Monday for National Day. Other major Taiwanese chip makers are also down. Chip stocks across Asia fell after U.S. President Joe Biden on Friday announced sweeping export controls on Chinese chip companies aimed at preventing the country from becoming self-sufficient in the critical technology. But the broader impact of the restrictions is weighing on the global chip industry. Bloomberg estimates $240 billion has been wiped from chip stocks since Biden's announcement. To find out more about the impact of the U.S. export controls on Taiwan's companies, our reporter James Chater spoke to Brady Wong, an associate director at Counterpoint Research in Taipei.
Explain for us what these new U.S. export controls are and what exactly they will cover.
The constraint on the Chinese semiconductor industries is broad and very deep. The first one is about the process. It asks the U.S. companies or company which use U.S. technologies cannot support the Chinese manufacturing companies to develop the cutting-edge technologies. But now it looks like U.S. try to put YMTC on the UVL and verify the list, which means YMTC need to prove itself not to work with the company in the entity list, or they didn't support the military service. The third one is about the chips, the product. It also restricts the companies outside China to sell the high-end chips to China companies. The last one is about the people. It asks the American citizen cannot support the companies in the entity list or in the UVL, or they cannot support the Chinese company to develop the cutting-edge technologies.
Why have we seen this dramatic drop in Taiwan's chip stocks, given that these export controls are focused on China? And what does that tell us about the impact of these export controls on Taiwan specifically?
It may be a problems in the short term, right? Because of uncertainties, because of the new regulations, because they are used to provide chips to Chinese clients. If the semiconductor industries in China stop or develop slow down, that will be opportunities for the companies outside China, right? So I would regard this as an opportunities for companies outside China. However, as you know, Taiwan is the hub of the semiconductor supply chain, right? I believe Taiwan may benefit more from the long-term perspective.
Broadly speaking, I mean, what do you think the prospects are for those really big like TSMCs of the world? Their prospects are in this new environment of export controls and the US kind of China competition.
Yeah, I think U.S. government learned a lot in the past few years. So now they learn the details of the semiconductor supply chain, right? So they know what is the critical point and how to control the global supply chain. The shortage is because of the constraint from U.S. to China. So I believe in the long run, it will be a good opportunity for Taiwanese vendors. But it really depends on how if they can grasp these opportunities.
Taiwan's President Tsai has told a delegation of Canadian lawmakers that the country is hoping for Ottawa's support to join a Trans-Pacific Trade Pact known as the CPTPP. Tsai met with the delegation on Tuesday at the presidential office in Taipei. The group is led by Liberal Party MP Judy Scrow, who is the chair of the Canada-Taiwan Parliamentary Friendship Group and Standing Committee on International Trade. She signaled her support for Taiwan joining the trade bloc.
Taiwan, in my opinion, has demonstrated a very solid record on complying with the CPTPP. And we hope as a parliamentary friendship group, and I believe most of the parliamentarians in Canada hope that accession to the CPTPP will happen sooner than later.
Railway fans in central Taiwan got a rare treat on Tuesday to mark the centenary of the coastal line along part of the country's western edge. A preserved steam locomotive pulled a special service from the city of Zhanghua to the small coastal town of Baishatun, stopping at several stations along the way. The DT-668 locomotive was made in the 1940s and is known locally as the King of Steam Trains. The coastal line was built during the Japanese colonial era in Taiwan. It was opened 100 years ago on October 11, 1922, as a branch of the Western Trunk Line linking northern Zhunan with central Zhanghua. Taijiang National Park is stepping up work to protect a land crab species that is native to the southern coastal wetlands. John Van Trieste has more.
Under cover of darkness, a crab wades into the waves on Taiwan's southwest coast and releases its eggs into the sea. It's the tail end of mating season for this species, and Taijiang National Park, which lies on this stretch of coastline, is making sure the crabs are disturbed as little as possible. To get an idea of how many there are, these volunteers search the dark coastal wetlands, but after that, they make sure the crabs are left alone. At latest count, there are close to 4,000 crabs. And to help them move around more safely during mating season, the park called in academics.
在经过做出统计之后呢，到目前的资料为止，已经看出来说，环部的一个效果以及我们说的喷砂，这个效果是最好的。
For the first time, the park has also shut down some roads to protect crossing crabs from traffic. And there are suggestions to expand this protection.
也许可以拉满月的前5天、后5天，从傍晚天黑前5点，那一直到晚上大概9点或10点左右，这个机车变道先把它封路，那不影响白天跟10点夜间大家的需求。
The crab's guardians hope their work now will set the stage for an even safer mating season for the creatures next year. Asnaya Zhou and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. I'm Andrew Ryan. Take care and see you next time.